Hello, everybody. Welcome you to the Cultural Heritage Workshop. My name is Karin Nowotny, and I'm from UBW, a consulting company based in Vienna. Gerald is the manager and director from UBW, and he is presenting after me. The workshop is organized by two EU-funded projects. INCREAS, it means innovation and creative solutions, and WeTrain, it's the virtual training for traditional crafts. The workshop is not only for dissemination, but we also want to gather some data for the projects. The program is a broad range of topics, from why we do it, to what, and to how we do it. At the end, you also can try out, but unfortunately only on site with virtual reality classes. The basic info comes then from Gerald, and he presents INCREAS and WeTrain our projects. Also, Julia Katona, I think she's on the phone now because we had some problems, is presenting from MRA.
Yeah,
yes, she's online.
I have to admit her. Okay, just 1 second.
MRR is a partner of the project. So.
Yes, now, excuse me, can you hear me now?
Perfect, yes.
It's perfect, okay, thanks. And you see me as well. 1 second now. I check if we can see your video. Yes, we can see you, and
perfect.
When you need to share your slide, you have to click on the.
No, these are in the presentation of Gerald, as much as I know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, please.
So thank you. Now we have Julia with us from the MRA, from the Magyar Renevás Alapítvány. I don't think I pronounce it right, but she can do it later. Yeah. She will talk about why we do these projects and why we need them. And then the skills requirements are presented, and the need for modern skills and the need for modern tools for cultural heritage. And yes, so afterwards, after INCREAS, and it's presented WeTrain. In WeTrain, the consortium deals with specific topics of digitization, and can we train the manual crafts for digital? That's the question. Can we use VAR together with 3D modeling and improve the identification of building damage? Yes, that's another question. And then Gerald is presenting the virtual training of manual crafts work and the manual and the virtual building damage identification for training, the theory. Yes, that's some words from me, and Gerald now introduces you INCREAS and WeTrain.
Thank you, Karin. Yeah, I will explain a little bit the two projects we are running now at the moment. Maybe I start with another point, because last year we was in Rome presenting the last project, which is already over, which deals with traditional crafts. Because we say we need traditional crafts for traditional buildings, because otherwise we can't keep them in shape. But of course, we cannot say we always do it as we did it 200 years ago. So we also have to okay, thanks.
The other way.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good.
Yes, no.
As I had it for my interview this morning, the camera guy was totally had to change everything of his change because I was too big for him. So it's like that. So yeah, so we deal with that, and we said we cannot expect that we do it all as our ancestors did it 200 years ago. So we also had to think about modern skills, modern digital skills, but also digitalization of maybe traditional skills. To be honest, it's not the major focus in the sector right away, but we thought, and I will explain later on who is we, thought we have to be prepared when we get a question like that. So what I'm going to tell you here in that presentation is, of course, the purpose and objectives. Karin said already the main things, and at the end, after the break, and I hope you will stay after the break, you can see what we have produced already. And we also have at the last point a motion sickness test, because the funny question we had when we write the application was, some people get motion sick when they are using VR and ER. But does it happen when you do some manual work as well? And we looked in each other's eyes and said, we have no idea. So we have to test it. And I hope you will join the small test we do afterwards to see how it is really working. So, and now I think that's the point where I hand it over to Julia. She will explain the skills requirement and cultural heritage. And I will just, I think that's, hang on, that's my part first. Hang on, just to make sure that where I am. Yes, I'm just jumping forward. No, that's correct. It's your turn, I think, Julia, right?
Yes. So thank you very much for the invitation on behalf of the Hungarian Renaissance Foundation, in Hungarian Magyar Renaissance Alapítvány. As Gerald mentioned in this part of the presentation, I will talk about some words about the skill requirements of the built cultural heritage. As a base and a starting point, it is necessary to clarify that in order to keep and preserve our built cultural heritage, our historical buildings, it is very important to keep and preserve all, and it is important, all the craft skills that were needed at the time when these historical buildings and sites were constructed. So for preserving our historical, let's say, traditional buildings, so we need to have all the knowledge of traditional craft skills, which is not so easy. So regarding that, these skills and the craftspeople who has had the knowledge of these skills actually have been gradually dying out. So the situation is not so easy, not so good, I think. But somehow we must keep and preserve this knowledge of different crafts connected to build cultural heritage, like and I'm listing now some of the crafts and skills, for instance, like architectural ceramics. So how to make decorative and architectural sculptures, how to make and do stone carving, how to make plaster turning, and for instance, in the case of historical buildings, for instance, here in Budapest, in Hungary, it's very important to have the knowledge about making of plaster profiles and the knowledge of, for instance, decorative wall painting and many other different mural techniques like frescoes, seccos, sgraffitos. It is a very rare and very unique technique of the mural ones, and how to make different kinds of mosaics, for instance. But the marbling and the covering of the surfaces, like tessellation and terrazzo making, so these are all belong to the group of these very difficult and very special craft skills. And additionally, I could talk about about the making of stained glass, which is very rare, so it is very, very hard to find any kind of trainings specialized, for instance, in this skill. So, so this skill requirement could be actually exactly the same as it was in the past, just to keep and preserve it for the future generations. So in this slides, you can see that there are some features connected to this historical or traditional building. For instance, like they have enormous added value. So before we started this presentation, Barbara suggested me to mention a research and a survey in Hungary, where in the focus there was the evaluation and the financial estimation of these historical buildings, and I don't know what university, but one of the universities made this research in Hungary, and they stated that on the real estate market, these historical and traditional buildings could be sold on a higher price than the non-historical ones, with very similar parameters. So, as I mentioned, so very important to have these traditional crafts, knowing and the knowledge of traditional crafts, and some other issue could be having a positive impact on climate protection. It's another topic, but okay, listing here, and we have to regard these traditional buildings as part of our circular economy, and we have to consider them as different buildings and constructions than one of the present times. So, and could you please, Gerald, step one slide? Yes. And so we have a question actually. So why then we do need modern skills when we are talking about traditional craft skills? So we know, as I mentioned them, so these skills are at risk, and we know that the craftspeople who has had the knowledge, so they are slowly dying out, unfortunately, and really young people and another generation to attract them to involve making and doing this kind of craft skills. And we know exactly that just to get involved and to attract the young generation, it is not really possible without any kind of virtual or digital skill or skills or tools. That's why it's so important to put together the traditional trainings and skills and virtual and artificial reality skills in one pack, and to develop them as interactive tools and training them for the next and younger generation. So this kind of development could be really so could be many real practical advantages, and one of them is mentioned here. For instance, the shortage of staff. So it means that using digital means to reduce staff needed with invoices, procurement, digital processes for sales and administration. So okay, so it can be a kind of advantage to implement these kind of trainings, the traditional traditional crafts trainings and skills combined with digital and VR, AR tools to implement them in the training of the middle level and the higher level education. So, and I don't know, Gerald, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, so more or less that's what I wanted to intend to say and tell. I hope that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
you see, there is a long list. Thank you, Julia. There's a long list of activities, of topics we should deal with. But what you cannot do everything in one or in two projects. So we have to, of course, to select. And I will show you what are the purpose and objects we are now dealing in the project we have. So we're talking about in the INCREAS project, which is related to skills in the sector. And we said, of course, when we talk about the sector needs in cultural heritage, then we should talk about the digital skills we need in the sector. And you might have an idea when you work with traditional buildings, you're not really the forerunner of digitalization in all steps. So the mindset is not very that is absolutely needed. 2 years ago, the question was, why do we need a BIM in historic buildings? We don't need it because the few information we need, we have on paper. This already changed, luckily. But still, when we talk about digital skills, it is not that it's the major or the obvious focus of the people. When we had, for this project, we had several objectives, and I put 4 of them here on the slides because these are related to the skills enhancement and also to testing and so on. The first one is analyze the education skill enhancement. That's exactly to see what skills are needed. In that context, we developed the digital expert for cultural heritage, a certification, training, and education for people in the sector. The second, the first objective 5 is quality standards. So it's how we do the work. 6 is putting together or looking at innovation in heritage, so mapping and testing, prototyping. That's also include, of course, digital means. And number 7 is including innovation and life cycle in the heritage profession. That's for us quite easy because all our trainings are cared for by a so-called job role committee, which is responsible for the further development of the curriculars and trainings materials for the certified trainings we have. I mentioned before so who is working on that project? The coordinator is Burghauptmannschaft Oesterreich. This is a sector organization, I would call it, which is responsible for the major cultural heritage in Austria, like the Imperial Palace in Vienna, in Innsbruck, in the several palaces in Vienna. It's also the estate owner of Schloss Schönbrunn and other historic sites in that same level. We also have some other organizations from the sector. So in Spain, we have the Association of Heritage Managers. We have in Slovakia the same. It's the National Trust of Slovakia. MRA was talking. It's more or less a similar organization. We had also include in this project the city of Lublin and the city of Mauerbach because we have to integrate the regions. Also the lower government of Lower Austria, because we have to develop a guideline for regional development around cultural heritage. And we also have included the ECQA, which is our certification partner. And of course, we also have the Bundesdenkmal, the Monument Office, and my company is also participating. In the second project, it's related to virtual training of metal crafts work. Because when we started, the COVID crisis was, of course, also having an impact on our sector. And the discussion was, there was a call for Erasmus to digitize the training of several skills. And we said, okay, when we talk about traditional skills like the blacksmith in the workshop, how we can digitalize the training for these crafts. And therefore we said, okay, we will try to find what's possible. So maybe we will see it's working. Maybe we have to check it. We don't know it exactly. And in the other case, we might have say, yeah, maybe that's possible, but it's cost so much that we will not do it right away. And others would be easy as well. On the other hand, the question was also the definition problem or the terminology problem you have here at the beginning. Is a simple video training already online training or a virtual training? Question mark. A lot of people would say no. So the second point is the request from the commission is very strongly to digitization, to have everything digitized. But we think when we digitize the cultural heritage, we need to know for what reason we're doing it. Because just doing it, that we might have the situation for like in Notre Dame, we have it when it burned down that we know how it looks like. The Burghauptmannschaft is responsible for the building. So they are running, they have a daily operation with the building. So when I do this scan, I have to do it in that way that they can use it in daily work as well. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because then we have your data, put it on the server, and hope that the server and the software is working in 10, 20, 50 years when you might need it then. That's not generating added value here. Here we have a little bit of different consortium. You already know some of these logos. There is additionally the Presidency of Portugal as a partner. We have the University of the Basque City, the Basque Country in Spain as partner, and we also have the EMC Krems, which is in University of Applied Science. Both guys, they are talking after the break about the practical things, half ECQA and half AIMC, so sometimes they have a problem to know where they are. And yeah, I think that's more or less all what we have here as partners in the project. So to the detail, need for modern skills in cultural health. So we was, of course, checking with the sector, with a survey, what digital skills our stakeholders are thinking that they are necessary. So we have created a curriculum already. It starts with an introduction to the topic, so to cultural heritage. Of course, that have to be there because we need it for the training's purpose. We talk about digital basic digital competences, and not really using Excel, for instance. That's not the point. But some basic things they are needed to understand and to deal with digital means. We need digital audience development. That's very much a topic, because when you talk about cultural heritage, you have a built cultural heritage, and sometimes you have a museum or maybe even a theater in that building. And sometimes the organizations which are usually interpret that what they have in their building or in their history, they're also looking for a VR and ER and other stuff. But on the other hand, you have an owner of the building which is responsible for the building operation. So they might often have different requirements as the cultural operators. So we have to coordinate that. We have digital procurement and sales. I think that was an interesting part, because we found out that I would say more than 50% of the cultural heritage is owned by public organizations. So we do have a topic here. We also integrated a point because there was a lot of feedback. When I'm a small organization like an SME or even a single person, how I can deal with an organization which is digitized, for instance, using BIM, how I can work as a surveyor, which we need in the cultural heritage sector very often, how I bring my work in the digital world of the building owner. So we need to bring them together and make sure that they are connectable. And that's what we call digital craftsmanship. And also the application of digital measures, which is also a training aspect, because our trainings have a project report usually to explain that you have done things in the area. Then you have the training, and for this we have an exam which have a multiple choice question. And at the end you have a presentation, an oral examination where you present your project report. And sometimes you have to defend what you have done, because sometimes there are things they wouldn't run as the monument office maybe would like to see. Could happen, but another topic. So at the end, you have this application of digital measures that you can get the certificate here. We are planning to run this training, I would guess, at the beginning of next year. It's about, you see, three. One is, as I said, introduction, the digital competences in craftsmanship. We said, for instance, digitalization strategy. The point is what we are going to do, for what reason do we digitize, and what is the best way of digitalization of the cultural heritage we have, and who has, for instance, who has the right on the data then? Because when you have a plan of a building, it is clear the building owner has the plan. But if you have the digital world and you maybe have a 3D model, or you have an app or a game, we have several examples like that. And then you ask who get the reports of the download from my app, from Google shop or from the Apple shop, and the answer is, yeah, our service provider knows it. And I said, okay, that means that the service provider is in relation to Google, to Apple, the owner of the application. So it's not yours. We have a good relationship to them. Sorry, yeah, you have it now, but what's about the future? Can you really guarantee that it will happen in the future as well? Such things, I think that's the more practical things we have to discuss in that training as well, because there is a lot of uncertainty and lack of knowledge. We also have the topic of data protection, and also the digital maturity, like a maturity model, how far enhanced you already are. And the digital audience development is the use of AR and VR, also the use of big data in that area, and so on. And yeah, this is the main topic of this training. The other one is quite a specific request happened from the Burghauptmann. The Burghauptmann is the owner, the head of the Burghauptmannschaft, and he came to me and said, I would like to have a virtual building damage inspection. Do you know a fund for that? My question was, no, not really, but we can make a training out of it. And due to the training, we have the process and know how to do it. So we include that in the Erasmus project VTrain. The point is how we can replace partly the physical inspection on the site by virtual means. Have a 3D model, have regular pictures, and compare the development if there maybe a grab is going bigger or not. And then when we start that, the colleagues in the Burghauptmannschaft said, no, that's never working. No, that's not, can't work. That's impossible. And then they see first time the model went to Krems, and the guy said, oh, I take everything back. It's so clear and so fine, and I see everything. I think it's working. So I will see what your reaction is. His reaction was very impressive here at that point. So the idea is that we selected one estate. It's the Charterhaus Mauerbach, which is very much related because the trainings we are doing are happening there. The monument office have their offices there, and it's owned by the Burghauptmannschaft. So it couldn't be an easier place to do it because every stakeholder are on the place here. So we scanned the entire Charterhaus, also one specific wall as a test object. We generated the model out of it, and we're now working on the business case for the use. In the mean, what inspection interval could be possible when we do it now online? We can reduce the lift and the need for the lift and risers. They are 60 meters high for the Imperial Palace, for instance, and we don't have to rent it. It would be also a reduction of costs, of course. The only thing we already know is sometimes you need to feel, to touch, and even sometimes to hit the stone to know if there is something. So it could not replace the entire inspection process, but it could maybe enlarge the interval and help us by doing it. And for instance, it could help also when we have rural estates where the people, the staff of the Burghauptmannschaft or other organizations are not working at the same place, but we have someone over there which is kind of, I think in French is the concierge, sitting there and maybe have the time to run through and make the photos, or even the flight with the drone, and then it would be sent over to the IT, put it together, and we can then do the inspection in distance. Would also be an interesting aspect here. We also have developed a training for that. It have to be usually 5 days. It's now 6 days. 5 days is for the regular, also for the project time, and we also will give them a time to fly with drones and use maybe understand the use of photogrammetry, because I think that would help us to gather participants as well, that then have the chance to fly with the drone. Yeah, but also beside of the training, it's not only that we have training skills, digital skills we need in the training. We also need modern digital tools to support that what we're doing. The BIM I already mentioned. It's a third project, so I just pass it by. We defined a guideline how to use a building information model for cultural heritage, for traditional buildings, because usually when you have a new building, you start with the BIM layer by layer, what you build, then you do it. For a cultural heritage, the traditional building is there. So when you start digitize or scan it, you have to do it in once, because no one would then 3, 4, 5 times go at the same place. So you have to do all layers in one. So you maybe have to reduce and say, okay, I just, for the Imperial Palace, I start with one wing. But we still have for some topics when we discuss the digital twin here, it's the resolution. Is it usually what we discuss, when you are the operator of the building, you need the highest resolution for the when you scan the object. If you're looking at the cultural operators, they don't need to see every scratch and every scrap. So that's the first thing why I said before we need some coordination here. The process of scanning is also important, because when you have the pictures and you have to compare the pictures with the scan, with the model you have, you need some reference points to make sure that you bring that over so that you have a consistency in the picture you get. The funny thing is, and that is also a topic, the attribution. Usually in a BIM model, you have an attribute, what type of building or what you have. That sometimes things that not always are entered in the system. But if you have a historic building, you maybe need to know, you have several layers, several historic parts of the building. So the first layer maybe is from 1820, the next one from 1875, and the last one from 1910. And the question is, what is the important part of these 3 layers? So this information should also be in the system, because you need it on one place. And you also, of course, I mentioned already, the level of detail is also a point. And the last thing, which brings us to the point that a BIM is one tool you need in the cultural heritage area of cultural heritage, but it's not enough, because what you need is a knowledge management system based on a building information modeling. And that's the point. The Monarch Protection Office requests several surveys when you start an intervention. And I asked a long time ago the Burghauptmann about these reports, and I said, can you guarantee that you did that survey only once in time? Because some of these surveys are related to the history of the building. So this is not changed, are not changing. So when you do it twice or 3 times, then you lose money by that. So my question was, can you guarantee that it is done only once? And the answer was, no, I can't guarantee. And that's the point. We have different systems. When you are public administration, you have to use several systems, and you cannot say, hurrah, I take the best one I have. I have to take which is in place. And therefore, we have to combine that to a knowledge management system. And we said it looked like this. You have a data lake, big data, that you bring in all the data, including the dot cloud, and also these reports to have all in one place. And if someone is coming and say, I would like to know about this intervention, this reconstruction, maybe this company was working for that, for the buildings of this owner, then you have this query logic that you get these reports in once. Because at the moment it's quite a hell. If you get a question from the parliament, for instance, you can say, okay, in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, maybe I see the guy again, because he is working or she is working only on finding the documents. We also think about we talk a lot about skills in the sector. We also talked about that we lose people, they really have the experience, or have skills at risk, but how we can support that we have an overview about what's there. When we have a training, we have a certified training, you get skills, you train, we train you in several skills, and you get a certificate out of it. And you also have already a profile in the e-learning portal. Why we don't expand it to use it as an expert pool? Because you already have mentioned your competences in that pool, and we can then say if someone is looking for a specific expert with specific competences, he can or she can find it in that portal or that pool. And the second step could be or should be also that you can use it as a first level of public procurement. So only the experienced ones are in that pool, and then you can say, okay, this is the work I need. Please, I would like, you know, you are on the same quality level, bring me an offer, and I can decide on the price here, because there is not anymore the discussion about lowest price, because you already have secured the quality here. We also think that we need a specific online marketplace, because I've seen several projects. They told me, we have done a virtual museum. I've seen it, great, wonderful. And then I said, okay, where I can find it? Yeah, and then I find an overall place, a platform, where I find this virtual museum, and next to it, a 3D model of the newest Porsche, so that I can see and sit in and see what feature this thing has. My personal opinion, and I think for the audience development, I would never think that I never would think about that I could find this virtual museum on that platform. And also there are a lot of smaller cultural heritage sites. They do not have an online shop. Maybe they are not able to have one. So the idea in INCREAS is to offer a marketplace that they can do some e-sales here. It's also part that the second marketplace is related to traditional materials. It's also the topic of circular economy. There's a lot of traditional materials, they are not used anymore. When you have an intervention, you take it out of the building. Another question if you should do it, that's another topic, but it happened. But it's happened that nobody knows about it. So it's just disposed, yeah. And nobody knows it. And then you just bring it and, yeah, get rid of it. But you could use it for other buildings, but nobody knows exactly where it is and who need it. And the point is, in Germany, I know there is a coordinated market for this part. In Austria, it's just, yeah, some are taking the phone, calling the monument office and ask, do you have place for my windows? And usually they say yes, even they not really have any space anymore. So the idea is to structure it a little bit more and offer this information to others as well. Okay, this is just pictures. What could it be? So it could be plates, this kind of tiles. It's called Kehlheimer Platten. I can't really translate it, to be honest. You have bricks, of course. You have roof. You have also windows very often. These are the parts which can be displayed on that marketplace. Yeah, now we came to the main point of WeTrain, the virtual training of Kraftwerk, how that could work. Usually we have a discussion about that, how you start such an approach. Usually you identify the craft you will go for, and then you think about how you can digitize it. Our purpose is a different one, because we want to see overall for the sector what type we have, what possibilities we have when we try to train virtually. And as an example, we have the blacksmith in his workshop, and you imagine, I think it's a picture with where the guy is hammering. You have an hammer and hit the metal, the iron, on the anvil, and now transfer that to the virtual world. Some of you might have already cut wood with an axe. Maybe you have already missed sometimes the wood. What's happened usually? It's at least a bad feeling if you just miss the wood. In the bad cases, you hit yourself. So now imagine you try to have a hammer in the virtual world and to hit an anvil which is not existing. So there is no resistance. So the question is how we can train such a skill with digital means, because there are some restrictions. And the core of what the guy should know is, when I hit the iron, I know from the actual hit and the feedback I got from the metal, is it ready or not? And when you don't have this feedback, you're not really can be trained in that skill. So you know, yes, I have to warm up the iron and then to hit it. But the question for a digital, for a traditional craft is knowing exactly, is that the right situation to go on with that material? The same is, for instance, when you look at the right-hand side, this is an old picture from a slacking line. Of course, you can do it virtually. You have the material, you have the equipment to mix it. But here's the question: also, when is the lime ready for using? And that's, of course, that's a chemical process. So if you know from what the lime is consisting, what moisture content we have, the sand, where it comes from, what ingredients the sand has, the moisture of the sand, and also the power you do for the mixing. When you have all this information, then of course you could calculate what happened when you mix that lime. But if you need that in real time, it's quite a challenge to have these things calculated, that you really get immediately the feedback here. So I think that's possible, but I think the effort to do it might be quite high. And the second aspect we also found out when we discussed this topic, sometimes you have virtual training, the other way around. A virtual training, especially when you have the COVID pandemic or similar things, the trainer and the learners are in different places. So when you just see the result, for instance, a very good example is the simulation of welding. So you see exactly the weld seam, how it looks like. But what the trainer cannot see is how the learner did it. The trainer sees the transmission or the transfer of the virtual seam, and he can imagine, okay, here it's not enough material, here it's too thick, maybe here you was too fast, if the material is stretched a little bit, so it wouldn't have the conditions you expect. but he cannot tell the learner, maybe he was just distracted by a nice girl walking by. This is a different topic, as he made another mistake. What is more related to the work he did. So when you have this virtual training, you need not only the result, you also need the process. So in that case, beside of these welding equipment, which help you producing the machine, you also need to have cameras in the room where the learner is to make sure that you record what this learner is doing. Okay, and now the next step to think about is when we I can't be seen on the screen. Okay, we have to check because
did you see a message saying that? Or
yeah.
You can see it.
Yeah.
You can see it?
oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, then it's okay.
Thank you very much. That's also a point when you have virtual trainings or virtual meetings. Do you really know what the other see at the moment? And this is the same here when we talk about the training. So we need the record of the process as well. As that was mentioned before, and if you have this recorded, then it could be done at any time, and you get a video from that what the learner was doing, and then the teacher or the trainer have a look on it. So it would then be not interactive, it would be just a video. And now that's the question before, is that really a virtual training? So for some it would by definition would be a no here, but finally I think it would sometimes go that way, just to make sure that the trainer really can assess what the learner did. And there's another point. Maybe I get it again. I lost the point. When you have this situation that you get it recorded and you have this the situation that you have the process and the result transferred, then we can go on and say we have several scenarios where we can talk about. So what does it mean? What kind of virtualization we really have? So we just defined for the moment 5 scenarios. The first one is very much related to the forging of window fittings, for instance, which means that there's a craft activity with a high physical intensity. You don't not really know, you don't really need, that's what I'm going to say, that you have the workpiece, the workpiece in real, maybe it's needed, the tool in real is needed. The point here is when you try to do it, maybe you need the motion close. And I remember now the point, what I'm going to say. When you have this situation that the learner is in a different place at the trainer would be most likely at the place of the training center, because that's more his or her place to work. The learner is maybe at home or in his or her workshop. So that would need the infrastructure for the training is then needed at the side of the learner, because this the learner needs the camera, the motion clothes, maybe the motion capture suit, and so on. And then this means that the learner has to invest quite a lot of money to be prepared for such a training. So I think that's also an aspect we have to discuss here to make clear that this is maybe a restriction for virtual training here. So going back to the scenarios, the first one is the craft activity with high physical intensity. It means that we might need all this equipment. We don't need an artificial intelligence maybe at the moment. The second scenario is a craft activity with like the welding of a flange simulation. You have, that's the only one we found, by the way. We at the beginning we tried to find training solution for virtual solutions for solutions for virtual training of the visual crafts, that way around. And to be honest, and we had quite a lot of search done, we didn't find any. We find several examples where you captured, for instance, perfectly the entire process of weaving a basket. And the question then was to the guys, they did it in a new project. The question was, for what purpose you did that? The answer was, why we do need on purpose? We have done it. So the question here is now, can I use that for my training? Yes and no. It's the same. They use the caption motion suit, and it's done for one single thing. And you cannot transfer it very easily to another basket and to another learner. So the learner has to do it again with the caption motion and so on. And I think maybe you know already in the room how much it at the moment, so such a suit costs. I've heard about it's 80,000 euros at the moment. So I'm not really convinced that any learner will really invest here. And also a funny thing, what I've heard about, and it's quite new, it's not in the reports, by the way, there was also caption motion capturing of blowing glass. And the interesting thing was that they had also a mold to just form this glass. And the interesting thing was you have a specific glass, specific form, and you captured it, you have it digitized. But finally, so it was also asked the guy who did it, when you do another glass, not even another material, a different content of the glass, but even the shape is different. It's also maybe different how to blow. To blow means that the question was, can we use that for another class as well? And the answer was no. We have to do it again because it's a different procedure. It's a different task. And that's make it a little bit more difficult for traditional crafts, because if you have more standardization, of course you have then a reference you can compare against. So for instance, when you train the welding seam, there is a standard how it should look like, and you can compare it to that. But for instance, is there real a standard, or the question is maybe different, are we able to exactly define this reference for maybe the consistency of a line? No, we cannot do it at the moment. And it's always maybe, it's often very different because of air and other influences. So the question is always, what is the reference we can compare against? The third scenario is you just do it in real and having a video more or less. So it must not done in real time. So it's usually just the video. You have the scenario with the chemical process I already mentioned, and then you have a crafts activity with dexterity. That means if you plaster a wall, it's more or less depend on your ability to throw it to the wall that it stick there. This is quite easily to record and when you see the process and you have from experience, you have an idea how the results looks like. I think that's the easiest one to virtualize. So that's the actual status. The next step is that we select activities, specific manual craft works, and try to test that with one of these scenarios also next year to make sure that we have a serious answer to the question how the virtual training would be possible. And I mentioned before about the virtual building damage, and I do believe that this is the point to change over to the next presenter. And it's 3, I talked a little bit faster as I have planned. I would say that we start with the virtual building identification right now and make the break after. One thing to that, as I mentioned, we discussed about how the process looks like. We have to, when we do that in person, first of all, you have to define the time. When you will do the inspection, you need the riser and platforms to go for. Sometimes you have to scaffolding it. It also needs some time to prepare and to organize, and also to get the permission to build a scaffold maybe. And then you have the people running, the person running around. For instance, you might have an idea how big the pallet is. You have then wandering several people, 3, 4, and trying to check everything. And now we think about what I mentioned before, to support these guys a little bit by doing that. And we also had a master thesis started from that topic. It's not him, he did the master study, so he's, you was beside and looking at and helping a little bit. But now he had the task to present it. So we have to change the presentation, so we have a technical break here.
No.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
There are
Yeah.
8 people
You are
connected.
8?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Nice. 10.
10.
Okay.
Okay. So presentation. So can I close it or not?
You can close it. Yeah. It's the yes, this one. I think this part we need after the break.
Yeah, just
Exactly.
So we have approximately 30 minutes before the break. Okay.
Maybe the break is a little bit earlier, and we
Yeah.
have more time for the
Yeah.
practice.
Okay. Can you just speak here, because there is
Yeah.
Okay.
so. Thank you, Gerald. My name is Marco. So I'm working for the INCREAS and also for a university in Krems. And our part was to make a model and application for a virtual building damage identification. So we choose a wall in Morbach as a test object. So at first I'm going to talk about the object, then about the other parts. So about the object. So we had to digitalize the whole Morbach, which is a pretty big object. I will also have the 3D model afterwards. And to test the possibilities, we also choose a wall. So on the left-hand side, we can see the wall in reality and also the drone we used. And on the right-hand side, it's a screenshot of the model. I also have the model on a platform online. The thing is that online it's pretty rendered down, so the quality is not the best. On the virtual reality headset, on this one, on the Pico headset, it's also not perfect because it's a standalone headset and it's just restricted for the quality. But at our facility at home, we have HTC Vive Pro, and there it's really good. So, yeah.
In front of the laptop, because there are 10 people connected.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so.
Don't move around so much. It was a challenge for me as well.
Yeah. I'm used to moving around when presenting. Now we can see the whole Morbach facility. So that was a pretty big object. And therefore we used also the drone and the camera mainly. And we also had to to like over 2,000 photos and pictures. So afterwards, we use the pictures to do the 3D model. Therefore, we're using the program Reality Capture. I don't know how expensive it is, but we have like an abo for a whole year. And as I said, the model is downsized online. And so the quality, it depends on the application size. For example, we have applications which can do a lot more than just a wall and look at the wall, but they're a lot smaller just because the quality is not that good. And for the wall, the quality is the most important part. So for the wall itself, we only use the drone for the pictures, and we could also use laser scans, but for now we decided to try it out with the pictures. And it's also pretty fast. So if you're focused just on the wall, you can take the pictures, which will just take about an hour. And afterwards you put it in Reality Capture. Then you can also texture it with Reality Capture. And if there are some problems with the texture, you can also go over it with Blender we're using. And that's also the drone we use. It's a DJI Maverick. And I can also show the...
Sorry, what is the name of the software you said we can issue in the picture?
So the texture and the model, the 3D model, it's all made in Reality Capture. So
you mentioned another software. You said if there is an issue in the picture,
we use Blender.
Blender.
So, but the thing is with the wall, I just have to change the screen because I have the model here. With the wall, it's important that we don't use that much with Blender because it's just, you get fake results because it's not the real wall. It's mainly used then for the Kartose to look good and that you can see everything, and you, for example, at the ground, you don't have a shadow through everything.
This wall is extremely...
So this wall,
This one.
yeah, it's this
internal
wall.
wall.
Yeah, it's an internal wall.
Now, do we
Should
both
load.
we did an external and an internal wall?
Yeah, that right now is the internal wall.
Because I was thinking of the picture we have, we're standing in front of the internal wall, but we also did an external wall.
Refresh it quick. Yeah, exactly. So that's the model, and so I just have to. Can I zoom in? Yeah. And also in this model, we can see that, for example, the cracks in the wall, you are just, it's not perfect because the most computers won't be able to render it good, and so we would have problems with the quality.
Usually when we see that model in INCREAS, it's much higher resolution.
But for example, if you afterwards try it out with the glasses, it's also in these glasses, it's a lot better. And yeah, so the main advantage of an internal wall is we are not related to the weather. And because it's important for the pictures that the sun is always the same if you're on the outside, which sometimes it's pretty challenging because you're there, you're taking over 1,000 pictures, but some parts are not that good. So you have to come back and the weather changed, which can cause problems with the Reality Capture program. And to have, where's the presentation? Is it working? Yeah, great.
Maybe it was 2000 because I was going to say something about the pictures.
Should I go back?
Yeah, please.
It's okay.
Because I think you see it already in that. I have to go over there, maybe. The online people can hear me as well.
Yes. I forgot.
So I join. We go back to the model because when you open the model and make it a little bit bigger, but not moving it so fast.
Yeah, I try my
Yes,
best. It's just
a little bit down. I will see. Yeah. You see here also a very, very good example of bad craftsmanship, because you see that plaster through this fresco, and it was a very unexperienced electrician. He just put it down and say, "Oh, come on, doesn't matter." We put the pipe, no, the
Cable.
cable in. Yeah, thanks. But you also see very in detail the scratches and the holes you already have, and you can move. And the funny thing was, you will see it later on. Most people, they already tried it, had a problem with flying around, with having nothing around themselves. So they introduced a platform, more or less.
Yeah, it's more or less a platform where you have like, how do you say,
something around that you had the feeling of being protected.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah.
In virtual reality, also in other applications, people always want to hold on something, but nothing's there. It's just a matter of the safety feeling, and so we have the little platform where you can move around. It's pretty simple.
To be honest, I am totally different-minded, because my problem was so real that I had the feeling I hit my head on the wall and not having a problem with moving up and down without any things around. There was a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious for the internal pictures.
Yeah.
Did you do with a normal camera or?
That's a question for you.
So for this wall, we only use the drone. The drone is 4K and I don't know how many megapixels.
Because the drone gives you the possibility to know each location of each picture, so when you use the reality capture, it will automatically assemble the picture.
So we can use the geolocation thing, but at the moment we are making the pictures like that the reality capture if you have two pictures, there has to be a part which is the same, so it can align itself. So also with the big model, on some parts we had the problem to align the pictures, and then you have the possibility to align it yourself. But with over 1,000 pictures, that's a lot of work and pretty hard. But reality capture is doing that really, really well. So for this wall, it wasn't really a big.
We also thought about what I mentioned before. I mean, the point is, when you use these photos, I think we need to define so-called reference points to make sure that we have maybe just the starting point of these photographs. We can really maybe locate with geolocation to make sure it's not maybe sank or other way changed. And all the pictures have to be in relation to this point, maybe these points. But this is, I think, a main thing, because if we don't have that, we might see a scratch or a hole which is bigger as it was before, but just because of this aligning stuff. So we were aware of that. But I think what we need to do is to define a structure, how to do these pictures. It's not only going there, making the pictures. The first time it's okay, but then you have to have a structure that anyone else can do it and go there and say, okay, I'm starting always here. This is my Greenwich time maybe, and I start from this point, and then the others are then put together.
If you have a space,
we have to space here. But yeah, that's for others, it's maybe a different situation. For the bigger ones, for the bigger cultural heritage, we don't have a problem. In that case, this aisle, which is this wall, is, I think it's 6 meter high, 4 meter broad, and I think it's the longest cross corridor, or how it's called, the Kloster. In German, it's called Kreuzgang. I have no idea how it's translated. It's the corridor around the Kloster. And so it's the biggest one in Europe, so I think it's 300 meters in one direction. So we can't fly with the drone in that case.
I'm just curious if we cannot fly.
No.
Ever this something with the normal camera or?
Yeah, I also have that.
Okay. He's going and checking it. We have some troubles with that. Of course, we cannot ever fly with a drone because. Yeah.
That's the one we are.
Yes. Yeah.
But then you will take photos.
So, for example, like this wall, you're just going from up or from downside. Just you have to have a relation. So this would be pretty hard because you don't have some points. The camera.
You have a scratch here.
you have a scratcher. But for example, at the wall, it's perfect because you have the different things. You have the scratcher, so that the reality capture is like, okay, I know, so we don't have to do much work in the background. So it was like, put it in, it's come.
But this is, of course, a question which is not only related to technical or other stuff. When you talk about using the drone in the Imperial Palace, I think you get very much in trouble because you have the Austrian president there, the federal chancellor, some other ministries and so on. So before you start doing that, you need to talk with several people that you get an allowance for that. So this is the other aspect. So we have to be flexible with the model here because we know that there are different situations. We cannot rely on the drone every time. Yeah.
This is a very intelligent question. I'm allowed to say so because it's not mine, but somebody who's attending online asked me to ask you.
Oh, okay.
It's possible to determine whether the master is pulverizing or not, based on these. Big
Pulverizing.
Pulverizing.
I would say yes, but I'm not the material expert.
Okay.
But when you see the resolution in the classes, you see it's very clear that I think you can collect a gut feeling first, because the point is when you see that there is a point you might have a problem, then you might have to go outside and say I have to be at this place. For instance, we had the situation exactly when we had the drone fly, that the head of department in Mauerbach from the monument office said, look, when you do this wall, that's great because on the gutter, I think it's called, where the Regenrinne, where the rains are collected on the roof, we have a problem over there. Please fly up and make a photo exactly from that point, because I cannot go up and see it. So that was one additional aspect. When you are doing it, you can make a direct spot on that where you think there is a problem. And if I have the model and see, that could be a problem like that, then I have to go outside and test it in reality. You wouldn't, it's not planned that we completely replace it because we need to touch to get the haptic feedback.
So it's more like an indication.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I'm allowed, there's another question.
Yes, of course. But why you get the question? You are so important in the room.
And I'll introduce because this is one of our customers.
Yeah.
The monumental, how do you call them, preservation organization in the Netherlands. They're using our software. So we're constantly in contact with them. And the director of one of the regional organizations, she is online now as well.
Oh.
And she is giving these questions. And the second one is, so the first one, is it possible to determine whether the master is polarizing or moist by combining images with warm temperature camera? So based on this, is it really possible the way you did it to combine these things in order to identify moisture?
To be honest, I think we didn't combine it with the
moment we didn't combine it because right now it's to get a feeling if it's that the base purpose is possible, that we can reduce the number to the experts flying out to the buildings. And if this is working well, then that's would be a good idea to combine it.
But that's the point, because we said when we start the project, we like to combine different technologies.
Yes.
So drone flights, photogrammetry, laser scanning, all together. Didn't mention the temperature scan, I think. I don't know, is it the right English word? Yeah. We didn't mention it, but I think it's one of the technologies. So we should then to discuss with Michael how we can combine it. And I'm curious now what the result is as well. So maybe we stay in contact and we will show the answer. I don't have it at the moment.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm very pleased to have a sector organization participating in our workshop.
That's good. I'm the former, but I'll come back to that later.
Okay.
Ja, natürlich. yeah, then we're going to the advantages. We talked a lot about it right now. So we also have the reuse of the model. So once the model is done, we can use it all the time. And also the expert, when he has time and he has access to a virtual reality headset, it doesn't matter if it's 1 in the morning or in the afternoon. So he can always use it and look at it. And yeah, also the more accurate cost estimates, because you just get a basic feeling for it, which is pretty also important. Cost savings also, like as we mentioned, it's just an easy, fast model to get the idea. And you can also have the model for several experts, so you're not only related to one who's like 1 hour away from you, but you can send it around the world. So different experts, different meanings and ideas, which can also, everything has an advantage to it. But as we also mentioned, the disadvantages, so it's the contact, the haptic feeling, is it wet or dry, and how it's the stone itself. So like the feeling, and also like if it's warm, cold, and yeah, then it cannot be applied to all projects, depending on the object itself. Sometimes you just have to have an expert, because pictures won't just help him. He has to see it, feel it, look at it. And also possible orientation problem. That's the part with flying around and where is it exactly, how deep is it? These are the things which we'll have to have a look at it. And yeah.
I think one of the results of the project should be a manual exactly how to do it, because otherwise it won't do it.
Yeah.
There was a question.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just curious, like, I mean, you can see in some of the games and you can have some haptic feeling by vibration or these kind of things. Yeah, maybe these kind of things can be learned somehow with meanings.
Yeah, yeah, of course, but what haptic you got? You got things which are not real at that point. And we have to know if the stone is loose and maybe it's fallen down, because that's the risk we have. So if a stone from the Imperial Palace would hit someone on the ground, it would be very unpleasant and costly. So I think, yeah, we have to think about how we can integrate haptic feeling or haptic experience as well. But at the moment, yeah, so let me say it's quite less of ideas about how it can happen. But of course, it's a point, and the first thing was the expert who is doing it, yeah, maybe all the time. The first was you can never replace it; it won't work anywhere, anyhow. And then he said, okay, you see everything, but you still need to touch it sometimes. We also have some light topics when it looks like that there would be something, but it's only light because of the shadow and so on. So there are things we have to deal with. We are not at the end of that project, but we have to discuss that and see how we deal with that, because the process, I think to do this, the virtualization here of the building damage inspection, that's the easy part. The more complex part for me is define the process, how to use it all the time in the same way. And finally, at the end, and this is maybe a point about the possible rotation problems as well. The manual is one thing, but on the long-term run, and when we have these experiences and also this feedback from the users, concrete, dedicated to this wall, to this situation here, you can also use an artificial intelligence, because this thing could learn and say, okay, this looks like, as I had it 500 times, and it looked like that it is in shadow. And then it could help you to decide if you have to go now or not. So, but that's more or less future topic. Okay, then I would say, don't run away. We have a small break, then you can have a look at the model, and then I would really invite you to the motion sickness test we will do afterwards, because as I mentioned in the beginning, motion sickness is a common thing, but how it appears when you do things really. So we had a test scenario, test, it's called in a setting.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward and appreciate very much your feedback on that. Thank you.
Okay, so we can have a break of 30 minutes. So, hi, welcome back. Now we will start with the last workshop for today. So I will be sharing the slides.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when you want.
Yeah. Hello again. After the break, we will now start the afternoon, the second part of this workshop with a presentation to explain how we deal with the topic of the motion sickness, how we do this test. And afterwards, then we have a practical part where the people here in the room, only the people in the room can use the classes and also do this test. Therefore, I would guess it makes sense that we, after the presentation, we have time for questions, and then we might close the online session and just continue here in the room with the practical test. The motion sickness theory, or the basics of the test, will be now presented by Marco again. Please.
Yeah, so thank you, Gerald. At first, I'm going to give some background information, then talk about our movement options, then the application, and in the end, the practical part. So, the background information. Our application is mainly about movement in virtual reality, and therefore motion sickness will always be a part of. People will always react different. And in our application, we have 3 different movement options. So at first, it's the so-called omnideck. It's basically a circle where you're standing in the middle, and around you there are 16 different sections with like treadmills. I think I also have a picture afterwards. And it will always bring you back to the middle. Then we have teleportation. It's the classic movement option in virtual reality. And then we also have free movement, which means that you are like floating over the ground. And yeah, so it's a steady movement instead of the teleportation. Yeah, then to the movement itself, as I said, the teleportation, it's mainly done through the joystick or button, and it's a standard method. The first picture, so the upper picture on the right-hand side, you can see how it will look like in the application. So you have like a blue circle. Yeah, you jump. You have a blue circle, and when you leave the button or the joystick, you jump to the point of the blue circle. And yeah, that's a pretty easy method. After 1 or 2 uses, you're understanding it, and it's just no problem to use. Then the omnideck, that's the thing below the first picture. You can see in the middle, it's our headset. And that's, so the headset will get tracked, and only the part where the headset is will be active, and it will bring you back to the middle. So there is also the possibility to run or jog on the omnideck, but in our case, we're just walking on it. And it's basically that you can move endlessly in virtual reality. Yeah, so it's made of metal bars, which can be weird in the beginning if you're standing on it, because you're not used to walking on metal bars. But after a few minutes, it will be pretty comfortable, and you can walk like everywhere else. Yeah, and then a free movement, that's mainly with the joystick. And as I said, it's a steady movement. And also in our results at the moment, free movement is the one where people are mainly will most likely get motion sick. And teleportation and the omnideck, they're pretty much the same. So it's pretty the results that we expected. So yeah, the motion sickness is the main purpose of the application because everyone can react different. And in the end of our application, we had a questionnaire where we asked the users at which station and where they also felt uncomfortable or what were the main problems. And in the application, on the next slides, we will see the different parts of the application. We have 5 different tasks, and they are mainly for distraction. So we don't really care about the tasks if they are done correctly or if people just do anything. It's just to distract them from the movement.
So you got not assessed when you get the wrong result.
Yes. So also people always ask, yeah, because we have a maths task in the, was it correct? And I'm like, yeah, it's correct. Yeah, great, you've done great, because it's just unnecessary for our study. And also in the future, we will try to go down with the visual quality because we want to know if that also has an effect to the users. And yeah, then we just look out for changes to the application itself. We have a 3D model of our event hall from the university in INCREAS, and in there it was empty. In there we have 5 tables with different tasks, and we also did the tasks in reality to have like a baseline for the users. And for example, on the right hand side, it's the first task. It's just a simple puzzle, but it's also like a station where most of the people struggle just because they're not used to the controllers and to the handling of the blocks, because most of the time they try to move around their hand and not lay the brick down and take it again, so it's looking like they're breaking the hand. And the other stations, as I said, is like the second one is also like building puzzle one. Then we have something with numbers. And it's just to distract the people, and it's working pretty well because they're focused on the tasks and not on the movement, and that's the main purpose of our application. And that's also it for the presentation, because the main part, sadly, is to try it out, but sadly for the online participants, we will not be able to try it out, but hopefully sometimes in the future. Thank you. If there are any questions, please.
That's the point now for questions.
Yeah, ask it in the chat. Right now we have the time. Also, if you have any questions from the presentation before, just ask. Thank you.
Should we then close the session officially?
Questions?
I don't know if it is interesting to put the camera.
We can turn around the
Yeah.
camera, of course, and you see what's happening here, but you don't get all the experience.
Yeah.
So you just only see then the people standing there with the
Yeah.
headset. But
Why are you talking to people?
users.
Yeah, I can also put it.
I hope you would like to act as a guinea pig.
I see that there are 11 people connected to the workshop. So unfortunately, you won't have the full experience, but we will turn the camera, so at least you can see what is happening in the room with a small number of people, but still, okay.
Yeah, you can move the control up and down. Like this, yeah, just press it. And you can also go to the platform, you put your hand in front of you, back to you. Okay. That's pretty much it. You can inspect the wall.
Like the position, set.
Yeah. Seems to be in perfect condition, no worries. the quality is quite good. And as you explained before, at least that's what I understood, you have to be, one of the difficulties might be the effective shape, right? Did I understand correctly?
Yeah. And like this headset, it's a standalone headset, so we had the original version on it, which we are using with the other headset in trams. Yeah. And on this one, it's not working because it's just the requirements or the hardware is just too bad.
Yeah.
For this application in trams with the more expensive one and with the PC connected to it, it's also a lot pretty good.
I'm not a surveyor, but to me it seems quite good and quite useful as well.
As I mentioned, the guy from the Burghauptmannschaft, he saw it with the classes and said, I see everything.
Yeah.
That's great.
Looks like the main track on the right hand side from the door. It's just like this is the one where most of the people are like staring at it because that's you can see the track really well.
Yeah.
The edges.
Yeah, great.
What did you do?
Yeah.
That's this.
Preparation for
Yeah, that's good.
This is a different press trigger with that's pretty much it.
I like that also the curvature. And the curvature, because there is a very slight curvature of the wall, which can be so like in normal scan can be. So this was taken, Marco, with the camera as that one, right? The drone was mainly with the drone. Yeah, sorry. So
But we often combine the pictures. So, for example, we on the upper half we can use the drone, and we can also use pictures because we can put all pictures in relative capture.
Yeah.
And relative capture will also tell us the pictures which were not able to be aligned correctly.
I see.
But we also get the model and the texture from it, just with the missing parts.
Yeah.
And so it's not a problem if some pictures won't be aligned, because most of the time there will always be some pictures that are just not good
Or quality line.
Yeah. But all in all, it's normally working.
And what is the software that they're using now?
So the applications itself, they are made through Unity. So that's the main program that our program is using. It's all made in Unity application. And
Later.
yeah, you can just So
Don't be shocked.
you press the. You just have to do
First you have to do an explode.
Exactly. That's all you can. There's nothing more you can do. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Okay.
Want to go back, just press the button and pull the into yourself.
Wow.
It's a real first experience.
Yes, it's strange to.
We also have in INCREAS, we have application. It's just a demo where we're going through a house with the virtual reality glasses, and there are steps inside.
Yeah.
And on the Omnideck, the people are going and it's like, but there is no step and they're walking like that.
For me, it gave me a little bit of.
You know that they are like
Yeah, you know, I was not expecting what I would have seen. So now I pressed too much. So
You are in the ball.
I was afraid.
So you might know that in Asia you find sometimes people with their bones in the wall. It looks like that there is one walking through the wall. So don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
And
No, it's so close to the.
but I know,
the wall.
I never see that fish with them.
So close as you never
But
was.
it's messing up the brain.
But it's true, because everybody has his own person.
And the quality of the wall is incredible.
Yeah.
I had the same problem. Also, thought I would hit my head.
And I see this wall, this kind of. Okay. Nice.
When you finished.
Yeah.
It's okay, you can take your time, we have enough time.
No, it's okay. That was kind of it.
But we also have the. Just have to change it.
Thank you very much.
But the cardboard ones, it's just.
That was so funny because she put it on that little girl, and the first thing she started running, and she really ran into a wall. Nobody expected it. So everybody's very confused the first time.
We also have it in with the Omnideck. Some people are going like that because
Yeah.
of the metal bars.
Yeah.
And other ones you can't even say, please go slow because they start screaming.
The Omnideck is adapting the speed as well. It's speed. So if you go faster, the roads bring you back faster.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
You're going and then
Now we have the motion sickness.
Suggestion Corona goes first, and let's see whether she drops down or not.
Oh, what is changing?
Basically, now the starting on the second one. On the right side, you can see a table with blocks. You can try out because this button is inside.
I grab.
And you will need for the first two stations. And fill it in the wall. Left, you can see a seal in the wall. And I don't exactly know which is which movement option. One is removement, and one is teleportation. But you will have the just.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, right now there are some blocks. And if you put your hand to the block, it should light up like in blue.
Yeah.
And then you can grab it. Just grab it.
1 second. Okay.
Yeah, you have to hold it.
Yes,
and
yes.
You can stay with it.
Can I do the other 3?
Yeah. Just let it go. Stay.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
I do like my shield. It would run on side.
They're pretty simple. That's also the inside. It's sometimes confusing when people are not used to controllers.
Yeah.
Especially young people that have controllers in the head all the time, so they take it, they know what to do. But if you're not used to it, you don't know how to hold it, which button is what. Because when I see like a joystick or AD, I know what to do. That's also sometimes a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Then you can go to the left,
Yes.
where you have 0 and 1 on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can point with your right hand. You should have like laser.
Ah, sì, sì.
And then you can choose either 0 or 1 and press with your index. So I don't know which number.
Okay.
Just
There is,
there.
I can walk or study, 0 walk, 1 is study.
Okay, then
No,
0
maybe
should
not.
be just, I would say just press.
0.
Yeah.
So I press like this.
Yeah, now you're in our event hall from the university. And now I just have to.
But should I walk?
No, it's just
Ah,
right
no,
now.
chat
Is it like, is it floating or is it telepathic? If you're, okay, I think you're floating over there.
I can't understand you. What does it mean?
So,
floating?
Are you jumping or you
Well, I
are?
have
No,
steady movement.
no, steady movement.
Okay. So then you see the table with the 1.
Yes.
It was in the beginning, just like float and stay to the table.
Yes, I'm doing that. When I move my hand,
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
I feel a little bit.
easy. Yeah. When you're table, you have the
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
Then you can try to replicate the.
You have room around you.
So now I should do the puzzle.
Yeah.
I won't do that.
It's also, yeah.
Oh, I don't feel it very well.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay, so now should I go in the other table?
You can. As
And
said,
if I
it's
want
just-
to go far from the table,
Yeah, then
I see. Okay, now I
it's just getting used to the controls.
So you said deep test will.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay.
Yes, but it's true that I have the feeling to fall a little bit.
Yeah, if you want, we can also try to consider the difference.
Okay.
So it's just because I have to start the application new. Change that.
Yeah, I feel a little bit.
Busy.
Mm.
But that's exactly the thing. We'd like to know if you are concentrated on the work, if it's then writing more often, the same or lower, or less compared to just in.
Yeah. No, I think, but now because I don't want to spend a lot of time on myself. So, but if I remain concentrated on the blocks, maybe I feel better. Now I really walked into this virtual room, so now it's true that I'm still a little bit
From working or from
walking.
Now for teleportation, you your left thumb, and you can see the blue
Yes.
line. And if you leave your thumb, you jump into the white where your scroll is.
Okay.
And that's how you move. You can also if you move the controller while moving the joystick, that goes up to the near to your file.
I see here. When it's red, because I'm too close.
Yeah, when it's red, it's just that it's not possible to teleport into the table.
Yeah, this is nothing.
So you're more comfortable with computation or
I prefer the previous one, even if because it gives me the impression to walk. Here it's like an image, I open another picture. Okay, where are you?
Yeah,
right in front of you.
Everybody left the room.
Last.
If you want to tell us, then I don't have to start it.
Well, yeah, understand.
And in addition to that, I left fund and interest. So, yeah.
Okay, okay.
And you can also teleport like to the first table or the second one.
Yeah.
To grab the. If you want something, it's the inside. It's like okay, kind of like depends on that.
Okay, then not there yet. So let's go
It's
to
okay.
table one.
You take one. There's the puzzle.
Is this from you? Rotate? Yeah. So like you read.
Oh, okay, so you're standing on the side of the.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's sometimes pretty hard with teleportation because when you're used to it, you just teleport back or somewhere else and then in front of it. But if you're standing close to it, to directly teleport to the right place is sometimes pretty.
Again.
Standing in front of the puzzle.
Yeah, I do.
So you can take blocks with the inside button. It's like, if you want to block, just so if you want to grab it up,
Yes,
then then press the button and hold it, you can
Because I suffer too much.
Yes, me too.
turn.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's most of the time this is the task in the station where people need it in the most time because the next task is also something with building, and when they're used to it from the puzzle,
Yeah.
it will be easier for the second station.
I see.
The station button is just masters like that, just like using numbers. It's pretty simple task. So the puzzle is
The puzzle is difficult also because it's small. The other one, which were bigger.
because it's the first station, and you have to be so concentrated because you're not used to it.
Yeah.
You will get distracted so much that it's perfect for the study because you only want distraction from the movement. So it's like the main reason is the first station.
And then you have the second one, the two numbers, the laser.
The way you have to before you went to the main movement. So one is the option like you have the steady movement. Zero, if you're shooting zero, you can get because we send the application out to different universities and get a pretty good number of studies and replies to the question. And the one is like And if in crimes we also have number 2, is the omitted. So the application knows which options.
I'm really used to the virtual reality, but the puzzle is too difficult for me.
I mean, it's pretty hard.
You'll be wondering how I ever passed kindergarten.
Also, the people are completely different because we had people with the application that just were like, they did the puzzle in 2 minutes, but never used VR before.
Really?
They just, was like hidden talent.
Yeah.
And other ones that they have a lot of say, yeah, can I go to the second task because
Yeah, fed up with it.
yeah, I'm fed up with it. I don't want to puzzle anymore. It's enough. But it's also the task where you have to.
It is in order, I would say.
Sounds good.
It's good. So, what's next? If you go
To the second. So it should be. Yeah. I can move to the second one. It's also like building blocks of the. No, for the application.
Yeah.
It's just leaving the.
Oh yeah, okay.
Seems like you're getting used to building the blocks.
And finally, my study of architecture comes in handy.
I hope you mean in a positive way.
Of course, always. I'm a very positive guy. That's also said.
So we would have the third task, which is combined with the fourth. So it's the first part of a marks exercise. And the fourth task, then you have to put the answer on the table. So the main thing is here to remember the
Yeah.
especially the little lines and the ends.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
If you remember this, you can go to the fourth and finish the. So it's just turning around, not exactly
Now I have to write it down. I have to-
Yeah, you can take the pencil, like you're holding blocks.
Yeah.
The pencil, have to hold it. You need
Yeah,
the tell
just-
back. And then you can write on the little portion.
That's quite fun. Writing it left, it's even more difficult. Could have used, yeah, right. Okay. Additional to yeah, fine. It's awesome. Shows red. Maybe. Okay. Yeah. So you just have to add 1 to every number, write the number down. That's it. Add 1 to every number. It's just they will not write 4 numbers. Yeah, write 4 numbers, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. So that's everything done. Yeah. There is no end screen, something like that. Yeah, the best part would be if you're not sick. No, I'm not sick. As far as I. Question. Sure. Scan. Yeah. I read. Yeah, it's also part of the study. Try it. So just starting, and because you said you can see that, so you take the teleportation. And the question is it the best sector you're working with? I'm not really like fully looking at it. It's part of big part of our work. Digitalization, service fully we are. We did some research projects about that. So it's not the only thing you do. Otherwise, it would be a question which has some reason. And then you can try to pick up the blocks in a rack with the very one. Are you also already in the board? Yeah. You find 01. And now I'm going to be called numbers. Which number did you take? 0. Then you should be you steady moving. Okay, now it's moving. Yeah. So you have chosen the steady instead of the teleportation. We just have to start. Go to the first. And, yeah, free movement is also the one that's yeah. Yeah, and to take the you have to press the
Yes.
The first station was the park.
We are there.
Yes.
So relaxing, isn't it, after
Yes.
3 days, yes.
Also, it's we know what
Exactly. Walking from here.
Yes.
the second one was
And so I joined you up there because I have my car.
Oh, okay.
So I need to.
Mhm.
Yes.
the first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can answer.
Yeah.
Yes. Which brings you. Like very nice.
It's really hot outside.
It's really hot. Someone will say, it's not. So I also.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And he was very on the spot because when we start the camera was the camera kind of changing in both direction. And I referred to him that
You have to complete it.
sentence. You don't have to. You will say. So I got to
You have the second one? And you can go to the third one. Yeah, because if we're doing it fast, yeah, I know. Okay. The equation. So you remember, okay, and with the fourth, and solve it with the other part. You have to remember the first part. Yes, I remember, but now just make sure.
Yeah. A little bit mathematics.
When you solve it, you can take the answer.
The sum of the other.
It's, I don't know, so
Yeah, I mean the other number. I sum it with the other number.
yeah, you just put the equation together. So it's the first part of the equation, you have to remember the minus in the end. And then, yeah, there were minus. I thought
it's equal.
No. The fifth station.
I understand now that they understand why you're moving.
Yeah,
sure.
Also the order of the tasks is that you have to
as far as you can. Great. I need only sequence movement when I run to the table, and I write to the table like this is the only one. Sequence. Yes. Most of the time it's just like if something's moving or you expect the movement and it stops, that's the thing that's messing with your head. I do that. Like I said, there are some people which won't even reach that first stage because they get so confused, like it's messing with their head. They can't. They also had some. Yeah, that's good. It's a good experience. Yeah, it's better than that.
If you do it sometimes, you are used to it. You just always either.
I'm not the expert, but usually if someone is in danger, then you always hear. But to be more useful, it will have an effect, so maybe it's an hour. But there are possibilities we don't have. If you compare with motion sickness in a car or a big festival, so some people know how to do it. Yeah. By taking. What you would like to do it?
Yeah, I can do it. And how long does it take? Actually,
It takes how long you will take the class.
I don't know.
Great.
Okay. I have a few minutes. And I do have to go. Okay.
Yeah. You might have to leave now to the right.
Oh, that's so weird.
So I can bring the left hand. And right now on your right hand side, you have to take one more block.
Okay, yeah.
And if you, for example, use your right hand and put your hand to the one block, lines up.
Like that?
And
Block like that? Or
yeah,
like that?
that block. And if it lines up, you can use your block. And you can also make it step forward. Because we have enough. So it is running against the wall.
I think they're lighting up. I see lines.
Good job. Okay, then step back. And if you put your hand against the block, it should
Ah, now you're
yeah. So you really have to put it in. You can also stay with the ground.
That's not part of the test.
And then you can also
see.
on the left on the wall is 0 and 1.
Yeah.
And there are 2 movement options. So 0 is steady movement,
Okay.
and 1 is the limitation. You just have to look with your right hand, put it to the wall.
You may have to explain teleportation means jumping, and steady movement means walking without walking.
And to say yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, then you have, so I think you have to do the steady movement.
Yeah.
So right now you have to use the yeah.
Okay.
So you can, and then you have the different tasks. So table number 1.
Yeah.
And there should be a task waiting for you.
There's.
Yeah. Then you can also grab the.
Don't run it and say,
Yeah.
Then you can also allocate blocks like
Okay.
insert button.
Completed image. Oh, this is going to take a while.
Yeah, that's the one. That's fine.
I can't see it. It's like blurry.
Yeah, that's something when a lot of people are using the headset.
How do I flip the block? Like, how do I?
Just grab it and then move it. Close it down again. Again. So with the inside button.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can grab it.
It's really blurry.
That's the thing is sometimes normally when you're using the headset, in the settings you have a part where you have the distance from the headset to your eyes.
Yeah.
And then it's getting like blurry or but when we're using it like here, the demo and sometimes it's perhaps not that much time. You can set it up for.
Ah, they stick to each other. It's too close.
That is not really foreseen in the test.
You have to have patience to do this, huh? And then as a person, you have to.
Yeah.
How do I push it down? Okay. It will accept it if it's not.
Yeah.
Ah! There we go. Okay. Now I can get it. Come on. That close. That close. Patience and lack of patience. Okay, I think it's.
Anything finished, we can turn around for a second.
I think it's done. Okay.
And use the joystick. You have to build something again. But it's easy. Normally it's easy.
Actually, I'm close to the table. I should have called this. I think it should be right. Ah, it's in order.
Normally not. Maybe. Sometimes it's a little bit. Next one is the so that's the first part of the conversation. You have to remember it, and you have to remember the mind.
Yeah.
You have the greatest results.
Yeah? Okay, then let me know what they are. It's all remember it's not to the fourth station, I think. We'll see. So I calculate this and then I minus the number minus whatever is here.
Just have to solve the equation.
Yeah, I know there's another sheet.
Yeah, but we would never know. Because I can't see it and the application, it's not necessary.
Good. Okay. Is the final one?
Yeah. It's pretty easy. So you just have to add 1 to every number in the branch.
I don't want to teach back that way. So I write 4 numbers.
Yeah.
And 1 to each. Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, that's so weird. Very cool though.
Also, your question.
Oh yeah.
If you want to scan it,
Yeah.
you can do it from.
It was funny to see how the turnarounds you do always real
Yeah.
and walking. You were assistant doing, and he was the first one to comment every time asking this.
Oh, everyone else is silent.
Well, it's
Yeah, I wanted to start walking at first,
Yeah.
and it was weird to push the button. All right.
thanks for being here.
You're welcome. I said you to do it. I didn't need to go. It was fun, but it was weird when I approached the table. Now I can feel it. And I was worried about the game. All right. I do need to go. Bye. Bye.
We need to leave, but we would like to thank you for the presentation and for not getting sick. It's also an achievement. I hope you will have a nice day. Let's see, maybe tomorrow morning some motion series.
But that maybe the delays on what I'm bringing tonight.
I'm sure we have for motion taken. Will you fill in the survey then another time tomorrow morning? After the ranking. I did it wrong, but then you can compare the results of the VR and the ranking in one.